Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K Behl. Today's talk is the 39th in his monthly series, Glimpses of Culture. From 2001 till 2020, when the last Limca Book of Records was published, Professor Behl was each year given the record for being the most traveled photographer and art historian. For decades, he traveled to all corners of the country, often spending just one night at each location. Therefore, despite the vastness of the corpus of surviving Indian art, a journey through art history with him takes us to numerous places of significance, including those which are not well known to tourists. He is the person who, for the first time, photographed the 5th century Buddhist paintings of Ajanta in their true colors and details. His book, The Ajanta Caves, has been in constant reprint for over 25 years and has established the art of Ajanta worldwide. Many are not aware of the beauty and importance of the early Buddhist stupas and Hindu temples of the Kashmir Valley. These are a significant and exquisite chapter in the cultural history of India. In the last few months, he has taken us to the earliest Indian art in the Indus Valley and Maurya periods. He also took us to the philosophic fundamentals of this art tradition, which were formulated by the 2nd century BCE. Today, he takes us to the joyous and graceful art of the Kashmir Valley and to the closely connected temples and sculpture of Himachal Pradesh, particularly in the Chamba region. Ladies and gentlemen, Benoy K Behl speaks to us today on art of the verdant Himalayas. I thank you for your attention and hand the floor over to Professor Behl.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterji. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A great pleasure to be here with you again. My apologies for the disheveled appearance. There was a minor accident in a hotel restaurant 3 days ago, and just getting over it. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of taking you for a short while away from smog-ridden Delhi to the beautiful, fresh, lovely valley of Kashmir. Kashmir that immediately brings to mind and brings to our senses a vision of the chinar trees, the vast chinar trees, the freshness of air, the many flowers, many roses that bloom everywhere and fill our heart with joy. A joy which permeated the early Hindu and Buddhist art of Kashmir, which is extremely significant as a chapter in the art history of India. And for me personally, Kashmir has a very special place. You see, in the year 2000, I set about making for Doordarshan a series of 13 documentaries on the cultural history of Kashmir. Now, till that point, though I was a qualified cameraman, I had done my motion picture photography at the Film and TV Institute of India at Pune. But till that point, I used to hire a cameraman to keep myself more free for my production and direction work. Now, for extensive shootings in Kashmir, none of the leading cameramen wanted to come because of the security risks that were involved. So that pushed me into picking up the camera myself, starting to shoot with my own hands. And what a joy it was. Once I started doing it in the year 2000, I never stopped doing it. And it made it made life so much easier. I was able to see exactly what I wanted to shoot and directly shoot it instead of having to explain it to another camera. And luckily for me, I was told that people showed a lot of appreciation for the camera and for the movements. So it was with Kashmir, with those 13 films in Kashmir. Of course, today's film, which you're going to see, is of a later period, but it was with these first 13 films in the year 2000 that I had the joy of doing not only my direction and script writing, but also the camera in all my films. And Kashmir has a very special place. Kashmir, the joyous Kashmir. It fills your heart with wonder. It is a place where your thoughts will always turn to the beauty and joy of the divine. You're always able to easily leave behind the materialistic concerns of the world because you're constantly being faced by the beauty of creation. So it is my pleasure to be sharing this with you. And as I think of this film, I think of the helicopter shots which were able to bring out, which was really the only way to show the architectural layouts of places like the great Martand Sun Temple of the 8th century. And I think of Mr. George Fernandez, the Honorable Minister of Defense in the BJP government at that time, and uh, and how he was able to appreciate the importance for the armed forces also of such a cultural inquiry into the Valley of Kashmir and to share the ancient history. And I was given permission to shoot from a helicopter, which was a great advantage. And thinking of Mr. George Fernandez, how can I ever forget my meeting with him, which was in his residence office. And there I arrived at his residence, expecting, of course, to see so much security and so much paraphernalia all around, and found there was nobody at the gate, nobody at all, not one person, no barbed wires, no security infrastructure, nothing. The, the gate was just wide open, and I walked in. Rather, of course, I drove into the driveway, and then I walked into the house, and the door was open. Now, how wonderful! This is a house of a minister of the government. The door was open. I didn't know what to do. I went into the first room, the antechamber to an office, and well, there you are. That was the way that uh, Mr. George Fernandez lived. And I came to know later that even as he was there as a defense minister of India with so much responsibility and so much power, he used to wash his own clothes with his own hands. Wow, what humility! Uh, I have never been, I've never belonged to the leftist side of political thinking. I am a spiritual person, but I must say that I'm full of admiration for a person who can live with such simplicity, such grace, and contribute to uh, the nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, Kashmir called me again and again on many occasions to do more work there, make more films there. And as all of you, many of you would know, it is a truly beautiful place. One has to be very careful if you're filming in Kashmir, particularly if you're filming to show the ancient history of Kashmir. There has to be a lot of security precaution. And my own way was that I always, as usual, everywhere, I began my shootings very early in the morning, much before the sun rises. I would be at the place where I was going to shoot. And by the time of sunrise, I was ready with the camera and rolling. And the whole idea was that the uh, the people who one uh, perhaps needed to be extremely afraid of, those people did not wake up very early. So by the time anybody would come to know that I was shooting Buddhist monuments and Hindu monuments in Kashmir, by that time my job was done and I was on my way out to another place. And of course, the other most important thing about security is that nobody should ever know in advance where you're going tomorrow. Nobody at all should know. Not even your drivers should know, nobody at all should. So, such are the precautions which had to be followed, and much of the beauty and glory of ancient Kashmir was looked at. A very enjoyable experience. I am deeply grateful to India Habitat Center for yet again this opportunity to share a beautiful chapter of Indian cultural history with you. I am deeply grateful to Doordarshan for having sponsored the making of such deeply researched films instead of the commercial and easily popular uh, work that is propagated on television to gain more advertising revenue. Instead of that, Doordarshan lived up to its reputation of being a public broadcaster, and over the years constantly uh, encouraged me, sponsored me to make deeply researched films, which was such a joy. And my many thanks to Sujata Chatterji. Everything that I do is because of her. Thank you so much. So, Sunil, I would request you to please run the film. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us.
In the high Himalayan mountains is the verdant valley of Kashmir. Amidst its great natural beauty, the thoughts of man have constantly turned to the wonder of creation. Since early times, Kashmir has been a renowned center of Hindu and Buddhist philosophy. It is here that the Indian philosophy of aesthetics was expounded in detail by the philosopher Abhinavagupta in the 10th century. It is in Kashmir that Shaivism developed to great heights. The manifestation of Shiva in the beauty of the world around us was worshipped as Shakti. Unlike earlier austere forms of Buddhism, the Mahayana and Vajrayana schools flourished here. There is a very special quality of joyousness which pervades the art of this land, which is blessed by the bounty of nature. In the 1st century, the Kushana Emperor Kanishka held the fourth great Buddhist council in Kashmir. It was here that Sanskrit became the language of Buddhist scriptures instead of Pali, which was used before. This was also the first time that Mahayana Buddhism received major royal patronage. Earlier, Buddhism was mainly an ethical message, which called upon each person to seek his own salvation through self-discipline. The new form of Buddhism brought the concept of bodhisattvas. These were beings who had postponed their own salvation to help others in the world on the path towards enlightenment. Followers could turn to them and pray for help. This form of Buddhism proved very popular and spread northwards and eastwards from Kashmir to Central Asia, China, and Tibet. The site of Harvan, on a hill near Srinagar, is where the fourth Buddhist council is believed to have been held. Tiles found here of a little later period, about the 4th century, display a remarkable meeting of cultures. We see here the art of the Gupta period in the plains of North India, interacting with influences from Central Asia. Geese have been a common motif in Indian art since the Mauryan period. Figures made in balconies above appeared in the art of the Western Indian caves in the 1st century BC and were well established in Kushana art soon thereafter. The facial features seen in the figures, their dress and other motifs remind us of the Parthians, Sasanians and Scythians, whose presence was constantly felt in Kashmir. In the naturalistic expressions and physiognomy, we see the influence of the art of Gandhara. A fine 5th century Shiva is from Fatehgarh near Baramulla. It shows this blend of influences from the northwest and from Gupta art. A colossal head of Shiva from Pandarethan is of the 7th century. The 8th century ushered in a glorious period in Kashmir. According to the 12th century historian Kalhana, King Lalitaditya expanded the kingdom and conquered most of North India. These military adventures are more likely to have been major raids rather than conquests. However, Lalitaditya would have carried back with him inestimable treasures of precious stones and gold. The prosperity of his reign is seen in the exuberant monuments and art of this period. A great temple dedicated to the sun god, Martand, was made by Lalitaditya at a commanding location above Anantnag. Except for the colossal 13th century Sun Temple at Konarak in Orissa, this is the largest temple to the sun ever made in India. It is also the largest Brahmanical temple in Kashmir. The temples of Kashmir have a remarkable architectural style of their own, quite unlike the Nagara and Dravida styles of North and South India. Late Hellenistic and Central Asian influences are seen in the triangular pediments enclosing a trefoil arch. 84 niches made around the temple, each contained an image of Surya or Vishnu. As in other Indian temples, these are various manifestations of the main image which was in the sanctum. Lalitaditya also made a large Vishnu temple and a Buddhist chaitya at Parihaspura. This would have been one of the greatest religious centers in the world in the 8th century. Though in ruins today, the scale of the monuments speaks of their former glory. These would have been models for Buddhist structures from Central Asia to Japan. The stupa here was most likely the one depicted in a 12th century painting at Alchi in Ladakh. The historian Kalhana also writes about colossal gold, silver and copper images of Vishnu and the Buddha which were installed in these temples. This would have continued the tradition of Brihad or great Buddhas, earlier seen at Kanheri in western India. Brihad Buddhas were also seen in Ladakh, Bamiyan, China and Japan. An 8th century crowned Buddha found at Parihaspura displays a form which was popular at that time. The crown is tied with ribbons which flutter on either side in a style common in Central Asian art. A small but well-preserved example of Kashmiri architecture is the temple at Pandarethan on the outskirts of Srinagar. A figure of Lakulisha above the doorway indicates that it is a Shiva temple. A figure of Indrani, the wife of Lord Indra, displays the blend of artistic forms in Kashmir. In the 9th century, Avantivarman, the founder of the Utpala dynasty, built 2 magnificent temples at Avantipura. Dedicated to Vishnu, the Avanti Swami temple here was modelled on the Martanth temple, though this is much smaller. Though the temple is in a ruined state, a few panels survive to the side of the stairs to the shrine, which show the exuberance of the sculptural style. The figures fill all the available space, giving a crowded appearance to the composition. The most popular form of Vishnu in Kashmir was the 4-headed Chaturmurti. To the sides of the central human face, we see the faces of his incarnations as a boar and a lion. The facial type and the modelling of the torso are typical of the style of Kashmiri art. A number of terracotta heads have been found at stupa sites in Akhnur and Ushkur. These would be of the 5th or 6th century. While the heads are of a fine quality and distinctive type, the medium does not seem to have been very popular in Kashmir, where the more permanent material of stone was preferred. The historian Kalhana mentions very large metal images, which were in worship in the 8th century at Parehaspura. These have not survived, but numerous smaller works speak of a vast and active production of excellent figures in metal. The Kashmiri artist preferred an alloy of zinc and copper, which has a beautiful soft glow and a yellow color. The images show the blend of artistic influences from the plains of India and from Gandhara as seen in the stone sculptures. Whereas the surviving images in stone are mainly Hindu deities, those in metal are chiefly Buddhist. One of the most magnificent works in metal from Kashmir is a nimbus, almost 6 feet high, from Devasar. It is of the 10th century and is a great achievement in the art of metal casting. Forms of Vishnu and his avtaras are made in the roundels. An elaborate brass image of the 9th century is a Buddha Verochana. He sits on a lotus pedestal and has stupas on either side. This conventional treatment of rock formations was seen in the murals of Ajanta and is common in Kashmiri art. Verochana is the universal form of the Buddha, in whom is embodied the essence of all Buddhas. Lotus pedestals and the deities of Vajrayana Buddhism are first seen in Buddhist art in the caves of Western India from Kanheri in the 6th century onwards. It is in Kashmir that we see a great flowering of the Vajrayana philosophy and its art. The formidable mountains that ring the valley did not prevent Kashmiri monks from travelling constantly to Tibet, Central Asia, and China. Between the 4th and 10th centuries, they conveyed the teachings of Buddhism far and wide. Kumara Jiva, the son of Kumara from Kashmir, is one of the great Buddhist scholars in Chinese history. Bronzes and manuscripts with paintings were carried by these teachers, which spread the aesthetics of Kashmiri art in distant lands. In the meantime, in the 8th century, in the Himalayan foothills, a high ridge of sandstone was carved into a magnificent temple complex. This was the period when hill faces were carved both inside and out to create temples far south at Kalugumulai and in western India at Ellora. According to art historian Dr. Michael Meister, the great temple here at Masroor provides the antecedent and conceptual model for the vast temple mountains of Cambodia, which was soon to be built. The temple seeks to express the cosmic form of the divine. The sculptures are similar to those found of this period in the wooden temples of the nearby Chamba region. Chamba lies immediately south of the present state of Jammu and Kashmir. The early temples here are in the secluded valley of the river Ravi, naturally protected by high mountains. No ancient trade route, nor even a modern highway, passes through this valley, and it has enjoyed continued periods of peace and stability. Many temples here are over 1,000 years old, with brass images, which have been worshipped continuously since they were consecrated. Eighth century temples here at Bharmor and Chatterji have images with inscriptions which mention King Meru Varman as the donor, and also the name of the sculptor Gugga. The wooden temple of Lakshana Devi at Bharmor is richly carved, and it recalls the art of the Gupta tradition in the northern plains. However, there is a lilting grace and joyousness of the hills which pervades this work. The deodar wood is lovingly carved to convey the softness and ever-changing curves of living forms. The doorway is a masterpiece of wooden carving. It has a 3-storied triangular pediment crowned by a gable in the style of the hill architecture seen in Kashmir. In the hills, it is the Devi whose worship is preferred, often in the form of Mahishasur-mardani. She slays the buffalo demon of ignorance, which confounds and confuses our minds. The image of her as Lakshana Devi is slim and graceful, yet it also shows power. There is a late 8th century image of Vishnu under worship at Bharmor. The image conveys the strength and power of Vishnu in his avatara as Narasimha, part human and part lion. A life-sized brass image of Nandi, the bull that Shiva rides, stands in the courtyard of the temples of Bharmor. The Shakti Devi temple at Chatterji is another wooden structure of the 8th century. The entrance to the sanctum is a magnificent work of art. On the lintel, flying Gandharvas convey the joy of existence. Numerous deities are finely executed on both sides. Both the majesty of the spirit and its ineffable gentleness are conveyed in these fine carvings. Indeed, these serve so well the purpose of raising us far above the mundane concerns of our everyday life. The image of Shakti Devi in worship is slender, with a slightly flexed, elegant stance. The blouse, scarf and other features are reminiscent of those seen in Kashmir and in other hill art. The town of Chamba has several early stone temples which continue to be under worship. The Lakshmi Narayana temple complex in Chamba is a spectacular group of stone structures. A 10th century Shiva and Parvati are the most exquisite group in worship here. While they have a regal bearing, human tenderness is also expressed. Shiva affectionately places his elbow upon Parvati's shoulder. The temple of Mrikula Devi in Lahore may be of the 11th century. Though the exterior is not impressive, the wooden interior of the temple is richly carved. The earliest carvings here are on the entrance to the shrine, the ceiling panels, and the pillars supporting the ceiling. Carvings of the later period include those on both sides of the window. 2 large dwarapalas are also of the later period. There is a great deal of similarity seen here with the art and architecture of the Valley of Kashmir. It is in the verdant valleys of the Himalayas that the art of India finds some of its most joyous expressions. The Indian philosophy of aesthetics sees our response to beauty as akin to Brahmananda, or the final ecstasy of enlightenment itself. Therefore, beauty is sought in all that is around us. This is brought to us in art, so as to help transform us and to fill us with divine joy.
Thank you so much, Sunil, for an excellent screening, another excellent screening. I'm so grateful to India Habitat Center for these smoothly organized events. I know, in fact, that I'm not a person who is technically satisfied very easily, but India Habitat Center organizes these events extremely well, and makes it such a pleasure. And now there is some more art of the Kashmiri artists. In fact, the early monasteries of Ladakh, Lahore Spiti, Kinnaur, and Western Tibet was all created. The paintings were created, the sculpture was created by artists who were invited from Kashmir. And this great art, joyous art, most beautiful art, laid the foundations for all the Buddhist art which would later follow in the entire Trans-Himalayan region, in Tibet and so many other places too. So the art of the Kashmiri artists reaches us in many different ways. And it is a chapter that may not be so well known when people think of Indian art, but it is truly a very important and significant chapter. And I would be very happy to answer a few questions. You could please put them in the chat box, and Sujata would read them out to me. Thank you.
Before I do that, I'd like to announce our next screening in December. Kindly note the date. It's on December 14th, and the name of the film is Roots in Sacred Art. It's about Buddhist and Jaina manuscript paintings, which laid the foundations of later Indian paintings. So please mark it in your calendars. We would love very much for all of you to be with us on that date, 14th December, 6 p.m. And as usual, it's a Saturday. There's a comment from Krishna Burli. What a wonderful work, Benoy. You have as though gone deep in spirituality with the soul, touching the innermost human skill, expressing Kashmir as witness in visual form with your camera eye. I get truly ecstatic.
Thank you so much, Krishna. And this coming from you, who is a person of so much deep sensitivity and knowledge. This truly makes me so happy to that you share such beautiful thoughts, and very kind of you. Thank you so much.
We have Pam saying, "Hi everyone, greetings from Abu Dhabi."
Hello, Pam. It's a great pleasure to have you with us.
And Kat Noor saying good evening to all of us.
Good evening, Kat.
Yeah, there's Sakshi saying, "Thank you for this amazing session. Sir, please share your filmmaking journey, what inspires you, and how you overcome obstacles as an artist."
Right. It will be my pleasure to share some of this journey. Uh, I always wanted to make documentary films because it took me deep into the heart of knowledge each time. And ever since I uh, encountered the paintings of Ajanta and spent many weeks with these paintings, I was deeply moved. I could see the great spirit of compassion which underlies the art of India. And it was a joy to share this compassion and this grace and these wonderful qualities which made life worth the living, to share all this with people. So I was deeply inspired to share more and more of Indian art with all who would care to see. And my journey through these films has been very interesting. In fact, when I made 26 films on the paintings of India, that was for the first time that I did a shooting journey of 240 days, in which we spent practically uh, one night in one place because we needed to be constantly on the move to cover so much. We went to practically every corner of this vast subcontinent. We went to 14 countries which had art traditions which shared and reflected uh, the Indian traditions. So we were constantly on the move, and it was 240 days of traveling. I think we traveled by road on an average about 250 kilometers a day, and woke up in the mornings at 3:30 or 4, most likely every on an average every morning. And it was such a joy to be assisted and uh, supported by the most wonderful people who crew who worked with me. In fact, when this journey of 240 days ended, one would imagine that people must have been very tired out. On the contrary, they were very disappointed that the travel was finishing. Subsequently, a few years later, in 2006, there was another similar journey of about 240 days for shooting the sculpture of India, again in all corners of the country and in museums around the world. And uh, there was also after that 12 films to shoot on the story of Buddhism. And before that, in the gap between the painting and sculpture, there was again periods of time in which we traveled just to document and photograph so much of art in so many corners of the country. Therefore, it's been a lot of travel. It's been a lot of journeys, and the wonderful thing has been to see the art firsthand, which is uh, which is incomparable as a way to come to know the art and to be influenced by the art, to be able to lose oneself with the art, to gain so much from it, and try to share that knowledge a little bit. Thank you.
It seems remarkable that detailed artwork made of wood has survived for about 1,000 years. Was the wood specific or was it cared for in a special way?
Hello, John. Pleasure to have you with us. And the wood would have been very carefully treated, and as all the materials used in ancient Indian art were very carefully, like the materials which are used for painting, for instance, very very well blended and carefully treated. In fact, if you wish to see some examples of older surviving wood. There is, for instance, the Buddhist caves at Karli, which are about 2000 years old. And these have ribbings made above in the cave. The caves were made to imitate the wooden architecture of the period. And in, in later times, the ribbings which were there in the wooden architecture were replicated in stone. But at places like Karli, they were actually made in wood, these ribbings, as if they were holding up the ceiling. They're 2000 years old and they have survived. So there's something to be learned from this. In a world where everything is done so that it may be done very quickly and so that it may be done for more and more profit, it's very important to see that there was a time when everything was made with an immense amount of care, great amount of discipline, and a dedication to see that it would last and last in all its beauty. Thank you very much.
Bettina Boimer, thank you for a beautiful screening. How can one share this film with others?
Yes, Bettina, thank you for your appreciation. This film, along with others before, this film will also be put up on our YouTube channel, which is after my name, Benoy Behl. You, YouTube and Benoy Behl is the channel. You could see it there and you could share the links. Thank you very much.
Veena Raman, good evening, Benoy. The way you have consolidated the heritage of India in text, films, and photographs is very commendable. Thank you from all Indians. How long did it take you to make this film?
Lovely to have you with us, Veena. Now, this film would have been part of my series on the sculpture of India, which was made in 2006, going into 2007. So these were 26 films. Uh, I have had to, all my life, work at a rather hectic breakneck speed. I am so glad that uh, the films may not show that, but meeting the broadcast deadlines of uh, the TV station means very little time. They're so used to films which are made with shooting in just you know one or two locations in one city, and so they're used to churning out material very quickly. Now, I had to churn out material at almost that speed, but traveling all over the place. But I had wonderful crews with me. I remember that my assistant director in the early films of Kashmir was Alisha Imti, who worked so hard in the paintings of India, and later for Latika Gupta, who worked immensely hard, and uh, and camera assistants who worked with so much dedication. And we just somehow, uh, you know, uh, woke up very early every morning, traveled every day, and just went on doing the work with, of course, advanced planning. We knew where we were going. I mean, a shooting journey of 240 days was begun with a little book in our hand. That book had a detailing of 240 days, where we would be on, let's say, the 91st day at 6 o'clock in the morning, where we would be at 8 o'clock in the morning, where we would be at 12 noon, where we would be in the afternoon, evening, where we would sleep. The whole thing was detailed very carefully in advance. But that's how it was. Thank you.
The next question is from Tarun. Kashmir doesn't have any relation with Shaivism now since all the Pandits have moved out. Question mark. In the changed circumstances, are all the traditions still relevant? Faith of any region depends on people's system of belief. The Himachal mountains have continued to maintain these systems.
Very nice to have you with us, Tarun. I hope you're doing very well. And in fact, the Shaivism of Kashmir continues and progressed to many places. Tamil Nadu, for instance, the Shaivism of Tamil Nadu derives from the Shaivism of Kashmir. So you have a great tradition flourishing, which emanates from what happened in Kashmir. And therefore, ideas are ideas are eternal. Ideas continue. They flourish. They change. They evolve. They flourish. It is so wonderful. And of course, as you said, Himachal continues. So many beautiful ideas, so many beautiful thoughts, so many joyous ideas of philosophy, such a joyous way of looking at the world, looking at existence. And but we cannot forget that much of it happened uh, in Kashmir. In fact, Buddhism owes so much to Kashmir. It was in the 4th century in the Kashmir Valley that uh, Vasubandhu and Asanga developed the Yogacara school of Buddhism, which became later the Vajrayana school. And then from the Kashmir Valley, Guru Padma Sambhav took this Vajrayana school right across the Himalayas and Trans Himalayas, all the way up to Arunachal Pradesh. And and Buddhism from here traveled up through Central Asia and China and eventually to Japan. So Kashmir's contributions are remarkable and very permanent. Thank you very much.
Dr. Naini, thank you, Mr. Benoy. Another wonderful mind-opening presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nani. Very kind of you.
I am Chanthe from Cambodia. I am CEO of BC News, that is Buddhist Cambodia News. I want to know why in Cambodia, Laos, I think, I don't talk lots about Kashmir.
Uh, somehow somehow there are first of all, welcome. It's so good to have you with us. Um, there are gaps in the spread of knowledge, and somehow people have not taken the trouble to speak about the invaluable contribution of the Kashmir Valley in Buddhism. You might like to look at my book, but then you already have, I think, one book of mine on the path of compassion, Buddhism, the path of compassion. There's another book on the art of India, and these help to show these connections and show what was happening and what was born in that beautiful valley of Kashmir and other places. But I think all over the world there is this problem that tourism agencies, for instance, concentrate on what is commercially beneficial to them. And they like to take people to those places that suit them to be able to make more money and make it more easily out of the tourists. Like that, uh, there are many places that don't get seen enough. many places that don't get studied enough. But these gaps should be made up, and we should have a more comprehensive and broad ranging knowledge, because it is only then that you understand things correctly in their proper perspective. And we must do our best to bring that about. Thank you very much.
Sakshi, sir, I am engineer and currently preparing for government exams in which I learned about art and culture. I am interested in filmmaking and traveling. How can one learn the art of filmmaking who is from a different background?
Yes, Sakshi. Uh, it doesn't really matter what background one comes from. As a matter of fact, the knowledge of coming from your background will help you in some ways to enhance your knowledge of filmmaking. The most important thing about filmmaking is one, your passion for your subjects. You must want to make those films. You must want to show your subject in all its truth. And the other thing is that you should have this desire to do your best. Of course, this applies not only to filmmaking but to other things also. You must have this desire to do your best. You must be an unrelenting critic of yourself. You must make sure that you are doing your best. Now, what does that mean? I might share with you that in 1991, I photographed the 5th century Buddhist paintings of Ajanta in their true colors, I was told, and in their details for the very first time. And there was this enormous appreciation. Hundreds and hundreds of newspapers and magazines, all of them wrote about my work, many of them more than once. Universities and museums all over the world invited me to come and lecture and show the Ajanta paintings. And everywhere I was told that my work had perfectly brought out the Ajanta paintings for the first time. But I was able to finally see that there were shortcomings in my work. So what did I do? I could not tell everybody that, look, thank you very much for your praise, but you're not really that accurate. This is not perfect. I just quietly went back to Ajanta in 1992 and did the entire work all over again. So the world showed a lot of satisfaction with my work, but I was not satisfied. I knew the work could be better. So instead of just resting upon the laurels, instead of just enjoying the uh, kindness of appreciation, I was unrelenting. I went and made myself work again and again and again and again, day by day, morning till night, giving those long exposures with the camera, working hard, sweating it out. And I did it again in 92. And that is the work which finally appears everywhere when I show my Ajanta work. Same thing happened with me when I was photographing the paintings of Alchi, the Buddhist paintings of Alchi in Ladakh. In fact, that time I had not even seen the results which I had shot. But I noticed in seeing a filter I was using, I noticed that filter, though a very good brand of filter, it was not correct. So I just quietly went back to Algae and I shot all the paintings all over again. So this kind of unrelenting insistence that you must do your best, that's the most important. If you've done that, you will have something to be happy about. Thank you very much.
There don't seem to be any more questions or comments. Just a minute. Yeah, Sakshi saying thank you, sir.
Thank you for your interest. And well, ladies and gentlemen, once again with the thanks to India Habitat Center and to Sujata Chatterji, who helps me with all this and everything that I do. Uh, it's been a pleasure to be with all of you and look forward to meeting you again next month. Thank you.